Hey everyone, it's Rex with Harmony Hollow Apiaries. I've had some questions from customers who have bought land recently and they're needing to fill out their 1D1 paperwork. So there were some questions that I had for the appraisal district. So I called the appraisal district today. Today's answers are going to be applicable to Dallas County, Texas alone. No other counties are represented in these answers that I'm giving. The forms are going to be probably the same or very close to the same for other counties. But I did speak with one of the ag appraisers today and just to clarify some questions that I had and other clients have had that have bees on the property. So we're going to go through the 1D1 paperwork for Dallas County. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so we're going to go to Google and type in Dallas County Appraisal District, and that pops up with Dallas Central Appraisal District. Click on that, and that gives us their website. Looks like the seventh item down is forms. So if we go to exemption forms, the actual 1D1 open space land application and questionnaire is the 5th item down. We're going to go to the guidelines first. So guidelines are at the very bottom of the page, about the middle, and it is qualified open space land agricultural guidelines. So we're going to go over that first. We're going to increase our screen size. So one question that I had for the appraisal district today was whether or not you fill out the application when you're starting your ag endeavor or after you've got your 5 years of history, because in most of Texas, you have to have at least 5 years of ag documented history before they will apply any kind of tax valuation for agriculture, which is, you're going to be your lower rate. For Dallas County alone, their guidelines are that if you're in a city limits and your acreage for your ag is 5 to 20 acres for bees, if you're in the city limits of any incorporated city, it has to be 5 continuous years. If you're outside of the city limits and just on county property or county land, then you have 5 of the last 7 years. So you can have a break in your time and still qualify if 5 of the last 7 years have been qualified. Again, in the city limits of any incorporated town in Dallas County, you have to have 5 years continuous. No breaks in there. If you do have a break in your ag where you have a year that you did not qualify or it was not applied, you have to start over with establishing your 5-year history. So it's important to go ahead and keep it going. So at the bottom of page 1, they specify here, the land must be devoted to qualifying ag for 5 of the 7 years if outside the city limits. If it's located within the boundaries of a city or town, it must have been devoted to ag use for the preceding 5 years. And we're going to go down to ag use. And they do list beekeeping. Beekeeping is kind of an add-on because it's fairly new to Texas. It was added in 2012. And the appraisal districts were a little behind on getting them listed. And they say that this list is not exhaustive. So the primary use of the land must be for the ag, no matter what your ag endeavor is. Degree of intensity for honeybees in most counties in Texas. So degree of intensity. So for honeybees, we have 5 to 20 acres is the range. For 5 acres, typically it starts at 6 hives. And then 20 acres, it scales up to 12 hives. That means that for every 2.5 acres over 5 acres, you add a hive. So 5 acres is 6 hives. 7.5 acres is 7 hives. 10 acres is 8 hives. Typical management practices for your livestock, adequate environment, basically. They don't list honeybees here specifically. They do later on in the document. In fact, if you have a change in your ag, so if you were in, say, hay production and you move to honeybees, again, this is Dallas County only because I spoke with the appraiser. They do have a different rate for honeybees as they do for hay or cattle, sheep, goats. Everything has its own rate. So when you change your type of ag, you do need to let the appraisal district know. So if you're going from, if the property had a history of hay, and let's say you're switching over or you just bought the land and you're going to put honeybees on there and not mess with the hay, let it go back to natural field, then you do need to let the county know that you're changing agriculture types. I'm scrolling down here. Beekeeping. They're very generic here. They list minimum of 5 to 20 acres, minimum, which is the state law, is 5 to 20 acres, minimum of 6 hives, and registration with the Texas Apiary Inspection Service. Let's talk about that for just a moment, because September 1st of 2023, the law changed. We no longer have apiary registration in Texas. We have beekeeper registration. So as a beekeeper, I register myself, I pay for that registration fee, and I list the properties that I manage hives on. If a property no longer has me doing the work, I contact the Texas Apiary Inspection Service, or TAIS, and let them know, hey, take this address off of my list of properties that I'm beekeeping for, or delist me from this property. But you'll want to go ahead and have your beekeeper listed for the property. It can be the property owner. The definition of beekeeper has been expanded to be the person who owns the property, who has control of the land. It could be the person who is the actual beekeeper, contractor, leasee. So it's kind of a wide definition. So you can be the person in control of the land or the person in control of bees. I personally feel like that if you're going to list as beekeeper, you need to be the beekeeper, but the state has expanded the definition this last year. So either way, it's not an apiary registration anymore. It is a beekeeper registration with your property address or GPS coordinates listed as the location. All right. So that is the guidelines page. We're going to close this. All right, so we're going back to the main page for Dallas Central Appraisal District, their forms page. In this very top section, open space land application, 1D1 agriculture land, and questionnaire. So we'll click on that and it opens up a PDF file. I'm going to expand the size of this PDF file so that we can see everything going on here. Hopefully I'm not taking up any of the screen here. Okay. So for the application, you're going to go ahead and enter in this top section the current year, so 2024. The account number is going to be the appraisal district's account number for your property. It's going to be a long digit. Step 1, the owner of the property's name, birthday, mailing address, city, state, zip, and phone number. You fill all that out. In fact, all of this you fill out. I'm just helping give some direction. Describe the property, legal description. Go ahead and fill that out. Total acreage that is subject to this application. So one question that I had was, is this the entire property acreage? Say if there's a house on 10 acres, does that take us down to 9 acres? And do we list 10 or do we list 9? According to the appraisal district representative that I spoke with today, she said that the only thing that we're worried about is the agriculture portion of the land. That's what this application is for. So let's say it's bare property with no structures being taxed separately, and it's 10 acres, then we're going to put 10 acres under the total acreage that's subject to this application. Whatever your acreage is. If it's changed ownership for these next couple of questions, you need to answer these. So has it changed since January 1st of last year or since the last application was submitted? Number 2, last year, were you allowed appraisal or a agriculture appraisal from the appraisal district? Yes or no? And if yes, you need to complete only steps 3 and 4 that have changed since your earlier application. And is the property located within the corporate limits of a city or town? So that goes back to whether or not you're in a city or town or county land, and whether you have 5 years that must be contiguous or 5 of the last 7 years if you're outside of a city or town. Step 3, describe the property's use. If we're doing honeybees, we're going to list honeybees. There's a grid here. So you'll put 2024 agriculture use is going to be honeybees. And then for years in the past, you need to go ahead and list those. If it was hay production, whatever it was, it could have been bees for the last 5 years. You're going to indicate how many acres the agriculture use was. So if, again, in our theory, if we had 10-acre ag land, so 2024, honeybees, 10 acres, whatever acreage you've got, and then give whatever history. Number 2, if you raise livestock, blah, 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 we're worried about livestock here. So 2 is going to be honeybees. Acreage, again, is going to be 10 acres. All right. 2B, if you raise livestock or exotic animals, how many head average per year do you raise? So this is where we're going to put how many hives we have. So 2B is going to be honeybee colonies in their description. And then number of head is going to be how many hives you have. So 10 acres is going to be 8 hives. So we're going to list 8 there. Number 3 is not applicable. This isn't crops. Number 4 is not applicable. For this, it's a government program, I believe, for having cover crop, or that's laying fallow or idle. Is there any part of the property that is non-agricultural activities? So you'll list that on number 5. Okay, we're going to step 4. So the next page, page 3, this is all wildlife management. Don't answer any of these questions here because ag valuation is not the same as wildlife management. Wildlife management is a completely different program. So we're going to leave this page blank. We're not converting anything to timber. So the very step 5, we're going to leave blank also. All right. So now we go down to read, sign, and date. So you're going to have your signature, title if it's under a company name, your printed name, date. Make sure you're giving correct and truthful information on all your answers here. Okay, we scroll down a little bit farther, and Dallas County has a separate questionnaire for ag use. Speaking with the appraiser today, she indicated that there's not a whole lot that's typically filled out for beekeeping. And we did talk about one item that would be. So go ahead and fill out the information at the top again, the account number, owner, contact info with your address, city, state, zip, phone, description of the land. So grazing is for cattle. This isn't grazing. Number two, I have no idea what an FSA program is. It doesn't apply to this. Number three, if you produce one of the following. So bees aren't listed anywhere on here. However, at the bottom is other. You can specify honeybees. Number of acres is going to be, again, the acres that we're applying for on the application. Average yield per acre. So at the end of the year, I will have a report that I produce that tells how many pounds of honey, how many hives I created from the hives that are there. Those are all things that are legal products that are generated by the hives. It could be queens, it could be more hives, it could be honey, it could be propolis, it could be pollen. There's a range of things that are commercial value produced by the hives. So those, you might list something there. It doesn't mean you have to, but you might list something there. Okay. Do you lease this property for ag purposes? So if you have an agreement, this is going to be lease or management agreement. So if you have an agreement with a beekeeper, a lease, a hive management agreement, then you'll want to go ahead and list the person who's doing the beekeeping. So you might list me, give my my mailing address, and attach a copy of the lease or agreement. So I have an agreement. I don't do a lease. I do a hive management agreement, and I also have a land access agreement. So the hive management agreement that I have with my customers basically is it's a 3-page document that outlines some guidelines. The essence of it is that I am agreeing to manage X number of hives on the property and for Y amount of time, for a year, for 5 years, 10 years, whatever amount of time that the agreement is. Separately is the land access agreement. That land access agreement is a 2-page document that I have, and it indicates basically that I have permission to be on the property for purposes of maintaining the beehives and or moving the hives to or from the property. And it's written permission in case a neighbor or somebody sees a truck in the field that they don't recognize. And so I can have a copy of that. And if neighbor calls the sheriff or the police and they show up, yes, I do have permission to be on the property. It's for maintaining the livestock there on that land. So, okay, is this tract of land a part of additional land used for ag purposes? So I did not talk with the appraiser about this, but I do have a little bit of experience with another county on this. For the tract of land, if it's just one piece of land that's between 5 and 20 acres, your answer is going to be no, if it's not part of a larger piece of land. I do have a couple of customers who have larger pieces of land. So I've got one in Collin County who has 40 acres. That 40 acres, however, is broken up into 10 and 15 acre lots on that full 40 acre parcel. So each of those is less than 20 acres and so qualifies. Collectively, there's 40 acres. And so there are 12 hives for every 20 acres of that land. So question 5 is where you would indicate, is it part of a larger piece of land used for agricultural purposes? Hay production, not applicable here. Go ahead and sign it, date it, print your name. Now this application and the supplement, make an extra copy of it. we're going to go over a few things that you should also include with your documentation. Let's talk about everything you need to turn into the appraisal district. Again, this is Dallas County only. The appraiser told me that they want all 5 years completed before you turn everything in. Don't turn it in for your first year unless you are converting from another type of ag to bees. You know, if you just bought the land and it had ag last year and you want to continue it for this year, then by all means, do turn this in. Absolutely do. If you're establishing history, though, you need to wait all 5 years, have all your documentation for every year, put it in a shoebox. That's what she laughed and said that people bring in all their documentation in a shoebox and they go through everything, log it all in, and they go through it. And then later in the year, they apply the ag valuation if it qualifies. So you're going to have your 1D1 application. You're going to have the supplemental questionnaire. Again, both of those filled out fully and signed. Copies of any historical records of ag valuation. So in Dallas County, there's actually a historical record on the appraisal district website for your account. If you scroll down to the bottom on the information for your account, there will be information showing the history and what year's ag valuation was applied. So copy of your maintenance agreement. So for me, that would be just, my maintenance agreement I have with customers. A copy of the land access agreement would be great to have. I also provide my customers with a honeybee management plan. It basically tells what my management practices are. It gives the property owner ideas on things to plant that will support the honeybees and all the pollinators, really. Beekeeper registration, if that becomes available from Texas Apiary Inspection Service. So properties now have a beekeeper registration. It's not an apiary registration anymore. As of right now, which is the middle of January 2024, that's not something I can just print out from them online. I submit my name and along with all my addresses of customers. And so, so far, they haven't been able to provide documentation back to me. So that might become available later in the year once their IT department gets everything sorted out with the TAIS. So beekeeper registration, if it becomes available from TAIS. Another good thing is photos of the hives. Show them on the stand, show the lid open with, a cluster of bees on top. Some counties may ask for that. So it'd be good to have photos with a time and date stamp. I would print out a map of your property. So go to Google Maps, Google Earth, do a screenshot of your property and go into Microsoft Paint or Paintbrush, something, and put a dot. Show where the hives are on the property. And then I also provide for my customers a year-end report. This year-end report indicates how long the bees have been on the land. It indicates what products of commercial value were produced by the hives. So whether it's honey, I'll give that in pounds. If it's more colonies, I'll tell how many colonies I created. If it's queens, then I'll tell how many queens were made. I don't really harvest pollen or propolis. Those are things that beekeepers might harvest, though. So that year-end report is going to be basically your production report showing what was produced. Every item on there can have a dollar amount assigned to it for its value. I would also keep receipts. That could be receipts for beehives. If you're doing this yourself, receipts for your beehives, receipts for the bees themselves, receipts for your equipment, your personal protection, your bee suit, your smoker, your hive tool, receipts for classes you might have taken on beekeeping. There's going to be every year there's several bee schools that pop up around Texas. So Central Texas Bee School, Brazos Valley Beekeepers has a bee school down in Central Texas. Texas Beekeepers Association has a summer clinic coming up this year, and there's going to be some classes there. So anything that will show documentation for your ag endeavor is going to apply. It can also be, if you're doing the bees yourselves, it could be any food or supplements you buy. Sugar. Oh my goodness, sugar is a big one. So get your packet together, make a copy of everything. Don't give them your originals unless they want them, but at least keep a copy for yourself of everything that you're turning into them. That way you have a record of what they have in case you need to go back and have a discussion with them about what qualifies and what does not. So there we go. That's pretty much it for Dallas County's 1D1 ag valuation. If you have any questions about filling that out, you can leave a message on the video, on the comments here. You can contact me. I'll put my contact information on the screen.